What would you do if the person betraying you was not just your partner, but someone inside your own circle? Someone who already knew your routines, your fears, and exactly how to turn your life against you. In this intense drama of lies, jealousy, and survival, one woman must stay calm long enough to uncover the full scheme before she loses her marriage, her child, and her future. And the deeper she digs, the more terrifying the truth becomes.
Our whole future, Julian murmured, hand on my belly, in our San Francisco home at 7:15 a.m. The tech CEO looked mesmerized. His VP of operations, however, was likely designing a future that excluded me. His forehead kiss felt hollow. To them, I was the delicate, expecting wife. A severe misjudgment. I would unravel their whole plot. This is my story. Where are you from? Would you fight, freeze, or just fall apart? Note, this story is a work of fiction. The characters are made up, but a woman's gut feeling is not. It started when my day began, not with an alarm, but with a notification from our shared cloud drive, popping up at 7:15 in the morning. He'd left a folder open, a digital icon on the screen. I sat at our kitchen island, drinking my coffee. The bay was a peaceful sheet of gray. I was just looking for a photo for his mother, I reasoned. My hand shook as I clicked on a locked directory. Putting my mug down, I felt a knot in my stomach. In the silk robe he loved, I saw a strange folder. It was labeled Contingency. A cold red washed over me. It wasn't old family photos, it was a plan. I accessed the file. Not vacation plans, but legal documents, her drafts. A sharp woman, maybe 30, with a self assured smile in her profile picture. Her name was Nina, and she was scheming with Julian in every draft. My Julian. The truth hit me like a physical blow. They were erasing me. The thought made me sick. This must be a mistake. It must be. I scrolled further. Below the drafts was a password protected audio log. My fingers trembled as I opened it on my tablet. Her voice, crisp and confident, came from my device. Ilara's due in September, she said in the recording. The prenup is solid, but the postnup's instability clause is our angle. We have to act fast. It was a chilling, calculated briefing. Are the transfers set? It was Julian's mother. Absolutely. I'll just be the devoted employee until it's over, Nina replied with a sharp laugh. The noise was like acid. My husband's betrayal filed next to our sonogram pictures. I stared at the open folder on the screen. A small window into a deep hidden betrayal. The affair was more than cheating. It was a coup, and the proof was on my laptop. I couldn't move. I saw a bookmark for a handcrafted mobile, a gift he had bought for the nursery. A small cursor blinked on the screen. They thought I was emotional, distracted, pregnant. The assumption filled me with cold rage. I leaned against the wall, the tablet slipping from my hand. The house suddenly felt like a cage. The silence was crushing. Trapped in this glass house on the hill, the wood floor felt cold, my body tensed. Through the window, Julian's car pulled away. The ideal husband, leaving to protect his empire. I was a problem. I needed to breathe. A systematic takedown of my life. The evidence was undeniable. He said he had a late board meeting yesterday evening. A location tag placed him with her at a private vineyard. Every piece was there, removing any doubt. This was a plot I had just stumbled upon. More files were nested in the directory. Outside, San Francisco was waking up. Ferries on the bay, runners in the park, a normal morning. But for me, the world had just shattered. I saw his car turn onto the freeway and disappear. My shocked face stared back from the dark tablet screen. This house held our shared fiction, the mirage of our joy. He never gave me a cause for suspicion. A deceit this complex needed a strategy. And I was the risk. Me and our child. A loose end he planned to tie up. But how? The light glinted off a skyscraper as one thought pierced my pain. He made a critical error. He sees me as a vulnerability to control, that I will break down and take a settlement. He has forgotten my past. He forgot my career. Before this, I was an investigative journalist. I uncover hidden truths. I follow the money. I expose conspiracies designed to be foolproof, and I will reveal everything he is hiding. The server pinged, a new document appeared. The reflection showed a shaken woman in a silk robe, the perfect picture of a pampered, oblivious spouse. I looked exactly as they saw me, ignorant. But I was mistaken. I studied the documents, the hidden folder, Nina's recordings, the schedule. It was a clear cut conspiracy. But why was this folder accessible? The thought was a splinter of ice in my soul. This was deliberate. It was a warning. Someone wanted me to find this. Someone was setting him up. But who and why? A new document loaded, a draft of a separation agreement. I scanned the terms. The language was cold, detailing a payout that was both clinical and insulting. Our life was being dismantled like a failed startup. My stomach twisted. This was happening. In a matter of months, his plan was for me to be erased, bought out, and silenced. I would not give in to fear. Panic would not protect my child. I had to be methodical. I would use my skills to expose everything. This was an arrogant risk, a betrayal so bold he thought I would simply vanish, convinced he was untouchable. The person who left this trail was a puzzle, someone with full access to his company, his accounts, his whole life. The idea was terrifying. The house was completely silent, apart from the rapid rhythm in my chest. The quiet felt threatening. This was the start of a war. I pushed myself up, holding the granite countertop for support, alone in my silk robe as the city came to life outside. A calendar reminder appeared on the screen. Execute E's severance plan. I nodded slowly. I was speechless. Moving to the window, I made a promise. I would bring it all down. I will expose him to everyone. He and his partner in crime will pay for this. I couldn't imagine my savior would be the one I was supposed to suspect above all. The time spent staring at the screen felt like an eternity. My heart ached with betrayal. Every new file was another turn of the knife. It was getting difficult to breathe. From my window, I saw the city move on. Cable cars on the hills, people near the wharf. I used to be one of them. The tablet chimed again. A file was labeled Vanguard Trust, a new holding company. My blood ran cold. The goal wasn't just to divorce me, it was to absorb our entire estate. And I recognized the signature on the legal forms, Julian's mother, Eleanor. His warning rang in my ears. Don't ever betray me. I never have, I thought. The papers laid out their entire plan. Our home, a beautiful cage overlooking the bay, felt claustrophobic. I walked the silent halls, the air feeling heavy. I caught my reflection in a polished metal appliance. The woman staring back was not the same. Ilara Vance. My entire life was just a line item for his next venture. My reputation, our house, were all assets to be liquidated. The crime wasn't just about money, it was intimate. Betrayal, carelessness, a threat to our baby. My reflection was made of steel. I needed his authorization on all of it. My primary bank card was rejected. The backup one too. A security notice appeared. All accounts were frozen. My access to my own life was being cut off. I was being methodically erased. I felt ridiculous in my designer jacket. My lawyer's office was formidable. Mrs. Vance? She's here ready for you. The meeting room was chilly, smelling of old books and power. It was a stark white space. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Maya, shut the heavy door. Julian has locked every account, she stated simply. This is going to get messy. The latch clicked shut. I sat there, the room's quiet pressing in. There was no way out. Maya Singh, I knew the name. We'd crossed paths on a huge tech corruption story years ago. She was a relentless investigator then, famous for taking down SF's powerful figures. Now she was the city's most feared family law attorney. A powerhouse, and the one person Julian Vance would never anticipate. The call was from the estate's security gate. Oh no, a wave of nausea hit me. If the call came from the family home, the cops would treat it as a domestic dispute. My story wouldn't matter. They'd find one inconsistency and fixate on it. They always protect their own. I was now the unstable wife. I needed a strategy. Last night, 7 p.m. I was at my prenatal yoga class. I was there for 90 minutes, surrounded by a dozen women. The studio's check in system logged my attendance. That was my proof. Heavy footsteps approached. A man in a rumpled suit, a detective's badge clipped to his belt, appeared in the doorway. He was older, with tired eyes that missed nothing. Ilara Vance, he said, bail is being posted. I looked at him confused. Your husband's lawyer is coming. His name is Ben Carter. The judge set it at $500,000. Half a million? Julian? A deep sense of confusion hit me. I hadn't made my call. How did he find out? I haven't talked to him, I said evenly. He shrugged. He called us, said he got a tip there was trouble. He put the key in the lock. You are being released. Who called him? I'm not sure. A contact here at the precinct, I guess. He pointed down the corridor. Mr. Carter is in interview room 2. A contact who alerted my husband less than an hour after I was brought in. My husband, who then hired the best defense attorney in San Francisco. Sunlight streamed into our San Francisco home. I was in the baby's room, 30-something, touching a hand-stenciled forest wall, feeling the calm of being 8 months pregnant. Mrs. Vance. The intercom's voice crackled to life. That model. It began with a bank alert on his tablet, an enormous sum for a bespoke gift. My husband Julian was generous but never personal. Then his sister Claire texted. He's under immense pressure. A defense for a betrayal I hadn't yet named. The artisan's boutique was noted on the charge. The inscription simply said, "To New Horizons." I reread Claire's message. Just give him some time. Why was she already playing defense for a secret she couldn't possibly know? She was in on it. My fingers shook as I looked up the artisan's studio online. I needed to see what he'd bought. We were due at his parents' for dinner Sunday. Before then, I had to know the truth. I closed the bank alert. The view of the San Francisco Bay from his penthouse office suddenly felt cold and vast. I was a beautiful creature in a perfect prison, and the door was starting to creak shut. Claire's text was too preemptive. The gift was too personal. I found the artisan's social media. A featured post from weeks ago showed the item, and a tag in the comments led to a name I knew intimately, Sophia Reyes. Julian Croft was the exact kind of AI wunderkind my family had always distrusted. Polished suits and a sharper ambition. The office was cold, but his chill was coming from my very core. He was the epitome of new Silicon Valley wealth. His level of success could sustain a parallel existence. The charge was from last month. A 6-figure deception. I looked at our wedding photo, feeling utterly invisible. Was it possible he wanted me to find out? In this connected age, a secret of that magnitude is a landmine. This felt intentional. He orchestrated all of this while I was pregnant with his child. His curated image as a devoted husband was a total lie. His motives are irrelevant. The deception is everything. Why this way? Claire's voice was in my head, insisting I should just think about the baby. Forgive him? She was already crafting his excuses. The betrayal is the only crime. The other woman is Sophia Reyes, his chief architect. She's brilliant and ruthless. A wave of sickness washed over me. He chose his own protégé. That was the real story. The evidence was in a single photograph online. Our finances are hopelessly entangled, our lawyer would say. What other secrets were there? The new car in our garage now felt like hush money. The charity ball, that was the night my faith in him crumbled to dust. The photo confirmed it all. He was with her. I was at that ball, I would tell him later. I was there watching both of them from across the room. I had left that event early. I felt sick. Were you unhappy? They would ask. Yes, we can use his neglect. I was expecting and felt awful. My friends all saw me leave. Get me that ball's attendee manifest. How could he have been so brazen? I had to swallow a scream. I needed my old design laptop. My entire former life was on it. Julian wants a family dinner, Claire's text flashed. It felt like a setup. The phrase, normally a comfort, now felt like a command. Why tonight? Did he ask her to arrange this? Her loyalty was always to her brother. Your husband cherishes family, he just wants everyone aligned. I'll be there, but I need the answers first. Julian was very clear. Claire insisted on the phone. He wants you at the Pacific Heights estate now. His demands were shackles. I'll see you soon, I said, walking away. I left her building before she could protest. My phone, off all afternoon, lit up as I plugged it in. The screen was immediately filled with alerts, dozens of missed messages. I scrolled through the clutter to find the crucial ones. Julian, don't speak to anyone. Come to the house. It was sent early this morning. Then Claire. Julian is beside himself with worry. Come home. His sister, the family's crisis manager. Why the panic? I hadn't told anyone, unless he had admitted it all to her. More urgent texts from Julian appeared. Their coordinated crisis management was its own confession. I stepped into the overcast San Francisco day. The crisp ocean air smelled of salt. The plaza was full of people living their ordinary lives. I stood there, trapped in a world of my own making, my thumb hovering over one contact. I was meant to call Julian to tell him the baby was fine after my doctor's appointment. But first I needed to understand who she was. I found an empty bench and opened my laptop. Maybe I was imagining it. Her social media was locked down, but I understood his logic. I tried a password he might use. It worked. A single private folder was waiting. The password was Cassiopeia. Our son was supposed to be named Leo. The folder revealed a corporate proposal, a new multi-million-dollar venture co-founded by Julian Croft and Sophia Reyes. This was far more than an affair. It was a complete merger. Our Presidio Heights home felt alien. The house that was my refuge now seemed like a monument to a lie. Just hours ago, I was blissfully unaware, approving nursery plans, expecting Julian's call. The electric kettle was still warm. My design portfolio was still open on the counter. I locked my office door, my breath catching. Just breathe, Elena. He was supposedly in Tokyo until Sunday. That left me 48 hours. 48 hours to build my case or find my way out. I walked to his personal laptop and woke the screen. It was unlocked. His calendar was full of meetings I now realized were fabrications. A summit in Tokyo, a board meeting in London, it was all a cover. I scoured his hard drive for another clue. Inside a folder marked Venture Capital, I found one named Sonoma. My blood went cold. I opened it. Inside was not a business plan, but an itinerary for a secluded vineyard estate with a private chef. The booking was for 2. It was scheduled for next May. My chest grew tight. The primary guest was listed as Sophia. The second name was Julian's. His public calendar showed a finance conference in Miami that same week. A routine business trip. I looked at the bank alert again. For S to our future. This wasn't a corporate bonus, it was a vow. I stared at the artisan's mark on the digital receipt. When had Julian ever bought something so personal for me? I collapsed into his chair, my mind racing. He was generous, yes, but thoughtful gestures were not his style. The new car felt like an invoice paid. The last big event we attended was last month, the annual Founders Gala. I stood up, my heart pounding. Mid-September, a venue overlooking the bay. I had been exhausted, barely 10 weeks pregnant and constantly ill. His chief architect, Sophia. The memory surfaced, confident, sharp, in a striking cobalt gown she wore like armor. She was attached to Julian's hip all night. I had assumed it was professional courtesy. My God. I grabbed my tablet, searching gala archives. There it was, from August 12th, 2024. Julian and I at the gala. He had on a founder's smile and a bespoke suit. I wore a dress to conceal my growing belly. The timestamp was 10:03 p.m. I zoomed in and saw Sophia standing just behind him. A chill ran through me. Her gaze wasn't just observant, it was possessive. I'd felt sick, so we left early. He helped me into the car, but his attention, his phone, and his real agenda remained at the party. This couldn't be real. She was his chief architect, not a homewrecker. She wouldn't risk our future, would she? His father texted earlier, Julian is building an empire. For who? My own phone was dark, no calls from Julian. I hadn't spoken to him since his flight to Tokyo departed, only a short text confirming he'd landed. I had blamed his distance on the stress of his merger. Our marriage had cooled long ago. But secret accounts and gifts for her? That wasn't just distance, it was a strategic exit. I saw the alert again. September the 10th, 2024, at 1:42 in the morning. He was constructing his new life in the dark, confident I would never look. He knew I never checked the detailed business expenses. He knew I would be asleep while he planned his departure. I stood, putting the plans for the nursery into my handbag. I wouldn't wait for his call. I was driving to Claire's house to see what she knew. The drive across the Golden Gate Bridge felt surreal. I raced past the city skyline toward Pacific Heights. The sunset over the water should have been breathtaking, but I felt numb. By the time I arrived, my hands were ice on the wheel. I entered the security code, her wedding date, and the gate slid open. The modern home on the hill was a testament to new money, though Julian had financed it. Every single window was lit from within. I parked next to my brother-in-law's new electric truck and stared at the front door. Just breathe, Elena. I got out, gathering my composure. The door opened before I could knock. Marcus, Julian's brother-in-law, was there, his face a mask of polite concern. 45 and sharp in a cashmere sweater. You made it, he said. We have to discuss this. I moved past him. The entryway was minimalist, polished concrete, a floating steel staircase, and one jarring sculpture. The air smelled of expensive candles and evasion. Claire appeared, a glass of wine in her hand. Isabel, in a sharp designer dress, offered a brittle smile. Ava, you look exhausted. Is it the baby? I avoided her hug. Is Leo here? Daniel's forced calm wavered. He's delayed. Please come in. The variance is our priority, he said, shifting into work mode. Isabel quickly agreed. I stayed silent, observing the scene. The apartment was a cold display of Daniel's ambition and my sister's social climbing. I moved to the living room. Daniel poured a bourbon at the bar. Isabel sat on a stark white couch, twisting a ring. They watched me as if I were an unwelcome variable. I sat opposite them, poised and waiting. Isabel sighed. This Gold Coast tower is so demanding. Daniel added, there's a small investor issue, a baseless complaint. It's handled. A complaint? I inquired. What kind of complaint? Isabel's knuckles were white on her glass. A whisper, alleging Leo showed favoritism to a junior architect. Who? Daniel's voice was clipped. No one specific. It's just gossip, he snapped. He was an awful liar. A muscle in his jaw jumped. Isabel suddenly found her wine fascinating. They knew precisely who it was. Before I pressed, Chloe walked in from the patio. She was in a cocktail dress that cost a fortune, her makeup perfect. Her smile seemed panicked. She moved toward me for a hug. I remained perfectly still. Chloe stopped, her cheerful mask cracking. Ava, thank goodness, are you okay? Her voice was a strained whisper. This whole situation is unbelievable. Chloe is the lead designer on the new tower, Daniel explained too quickly. This is a PR headache. I offered no response. Our lawyers are containing it. Chloe blinked. You know Chicago. It's a very small town. I studied her. The anxiety seemed genuine, but her performance felt scripted. Her hands trembled, but her eyes were sharp. This was not concern. It was damage assessment. Chloe, I started, my voice level. Where were you last night around 9:47 p.m.? The room became utterly still. Daniel slammed his glass down. What the hell does that have to do with anything? I kept my eyes on Chloe. It's a simple question. Where were you? Her lips parted, but she was silent. I was here, working with Daniel and Isabel. I shifted my gaze to my sister. Is that true? Yes, she confirmed, a little too fast. We were all here. What were you working on? Isabel hesitated. The building permits. Yes, the permits. Until when? Past midnight, Daniel cut in. All evening. What are you getting at, Ava? I stood up from my chair. Chloe flinched. I have no point, I said. I'm just curious. why the security log for my building shows a guest fob was used last night, and why my husband's missing tablet is pinging its GPS signal to this address. That's preposterous, Daniel began. Ah, is it? I held Chloe's gaze. Truly? My eyes fell to her wrist. A delicate gold bracelet was visible. Where did you get that charm bracelet? I asked. Her hand instinctively covered it. It was a gift for my birthday. When? Last night. Before or after 9:47. Ava, that is enough. Daniel stood, his tone low and menacing. You're emotional, you're pregnant, and you're overreacting. You will not come here and interrogate our colleague. I need to use the restroom, I said calmly. No one moved. The one by the study, I added. Daniel's jaw was set, but he gave a short, angry nod. I walked out and down the hallway, but I didn't go to the restroom. I went straight to the home office, to the secret that would dismantle their lies. The room was a sleek workspace Chloe could never afford. I shut the door behind me. I heard Daniel's low, furious voice from the other room. Isabel's placating tones. The sound of a decanter. Perfect. They thought I was hysterical. I took in the office. One leather chair, a shelf of Yin Yan Red architectural books, a desk with a sleek laptop. The closet door was ajar, showing a server rack with blinking lights. On the desk, a new framed photo of Leo and Chloe at a charity gala was turned away. His personal laptop was on its dock, a tiny light pulsing. I went over and lifted the lid. It recognized my fingerprint. The background was a photo of us in Italy 2 years ago, a relic from a different marriage. I started searching through the project folders on the desktop. The development files were all there. The River North Tower project, and several other big investment plans. Then I found it. The first few folders looked normal. A proposal for a new hotel, a file called Lincoln Park Brownstone, a spreadsheet for a new fund, all parts of his business empire. When I closed an application, a recently synced folder appeared. It was titled simply Contingency. My hand started to shake. I opened it. It required a password. I typed our wedding date. Denied. I typed the date he closed his first deal. 1208. It opened. The folder was filled with financial transfers. August 5th, 2024, 10:15 a.m. $50,000 to a Lincoln Park Realty Group. August 19th, 2024, 3:30 a.m. $100,000 to Lakeshore Holdings LLC. August 28th, 2024, 5:02 a.m. $25,000 to an interior designer. What was Lakeshore Holdings? September 2nd, 2024, 11:40 p.m. A browser search. Illinois marital property laws. My blood ran cold. A sick, heavy pulse started in my ears. Leo was hiding money. He was preparing to leave me. That night, he claimed a city inspection kept him at the site. He was actually planning a new life. My hands shook as I used my phone to photograph the screen, documenting every transfer, every search. I closed the folder, shut the laptop, and my reality shattered. I had to find more. His lawyers could explain the searches as simple estate planning. I needed the full story. I logged into our shared cloud drive and navigated to the archives. Family vacations, blueprints, city photos. In a folder marked Lakefront Project, I saw the discrepancy. Tucked inside was another encrypted file. My heart hammered against my ribs. I entered the date Chloe started at my sister's firm. It opened. This file didn't hold blueprints. It was a log of secure chats. The first was from June 10th, 2024. Message 1. Leo to Chloe. Your presentation to the board was incredible. You have them eating out of your hand. She was so proud of winning that contract. He was supposed to be my husband, cheering for me. I jumped ahead. Message 32. Chloe to Leo. I still can't get over this view. It is stunning. An image was attached, showing a panoramic view of the Chicago skyline from a high-rise, the condo he bought. Message 50. Leo. The lawyers are moving. The Lakeshore Holdings Trust is ironclad. Chloe? And the baby? What about Ava? Leo. She suspects nothing. Message 81 from last week. It's final, the trust is funded, the condo is yours. Ava's little world is about to fall apart, and I will be the one you come home to. I choked back a sob, the screen going blurry. Leo wasn't just having an affair. He was building an entirely new life with my sister's protege. He bought her a home. He created a trust. He had planned my removal like a bad investment, a liability to be discarded. I heard the faint hum of his car pulling into the garage. I closed the laptop, placed it back on the dock, and turned as he walked into the library. Leo was there, loosening his tie. Ava, you're still awake. I composed my features into the weary face of his pregnant wife. I'm sorry, just feeling a little anxious. It's the baby. Leo's eyes swept the room. The desk, the project plans, the laptop. Why aren't you in bed? It was warmer down here, I lied. I felt nauseous. His eyes stayed on the laptop a second too long. Then he met my gaze. You should get some sleep, he said, his voice softening. You need to be rested. Big meeting with the city tomorrow. I nodded. You're right. I started for the door, but he stopped me, his hand on my arm. You know I love you, don't you? His words were a velvet-lined cage. Everything I am doing is for us and our family. You have to believe that. I stared at his hand on my arm, the same one that typed those promises to her. I looked up, meeting his false, earnest gaze. Of course I do, I whispered back. You're my husband. His posture relaxed into a relieved smile as he released me. I walked out down the corridor past the nursery we had just designed. I did not look inside. I went into our bedroom, turned the lock, and slid down the door, my entire foundation cracking. I collapsed onto the floor, my body trembling uncontrollably. 3 facts were now certain. First, Leo had diverted our joint assets into a ghost trust. Second, the only person with access was my sister's junior architect, Chloe. And third, they were planning to build their future on the ashes of my own. But the most painful part was what I didn't know. I had no idea how he planned to remove me from the picture entirely. I stared at the ceiling until sunrise. Then I was in my office, my 3 monitors illuminating the dark, beginning to dismantle his entire digital world. The chat logs were on the left monitor. Transfer receipts, shell company names, dates. In the center, I opened our secure home network's administrative controls. On the right, a spreadsheet began to chart a timeline of my husband's and Chloe's joint betrayal. June 4th, the affair started. August 5th, the siphoning of funds began. September 2nd, he researched how to erase a wife from a fortune. It was September 4th, 10:17 p.m. I found out. Not with a smoking gun, but a quiet digital loose thread. I had messages, odd credit card charges, but it was all circumstantial, the kind of thing his team of lawyers could brush away like dust. I sat on the couch, my prenatal tea untouched, staring at nothing. Then I remembered. The cloud drive. 4 years ago, I'd set it up as a digital scrapbook for us, a place for his business blueprints and my architectural designs. I configured 2 accounts, one for him, one for me. But as the administrator, I held the master key, giving me access to every single file on the server. I grabbed my laptop, my fingers flying across the keys. The login screen glowed, showing 2 linked profiles, Clara Vance, Julian Croft. I clicked on his profile. A list of synced folders appeared. Finances, contracts, personal, all backing up constantly. A cold resolve settled over me. Time to see what you've really been building, Julian. I found a password-protected folder labeled Contingency. The hint was our first spark. I typed Geneva. It opened. Inside wasn't memorabilia, but a 50-page PDF. A trust document dated the day before. I downloaded the file, my heart hammering as I waited. The document laid out his entire financial life, every holding, every shell corp, every hidden account. I went straight for the asset allocation. A section flagged a recent transaction. I cross-referenced it. A wire transfer between Julian and a private bank in the Caymans. I scrolled up. July 8th, 2024. $500,000. The transfer notes were encrypted. Julian replied to the banker, "Ensure the beneficiary is firewalled." The banker wrote back, "The holding company is 3 layers deep. No link to your name." My blood ran cold. Forged ownership papers. He was creating a ghost fund. He wasn't just hiding money, he was erasing it. My hand tightened on the trackpad. An audit. He was building a financial escape route designed to shield our assets while leaving me tied to the liabilities. He wasn't just cheating, he was planning to financially ruin me. I saved a copy and added it to a new folder I named Evidence. Next, business expenses. I scanned back to early summer, July 12th, a $50,000 payment to Ivy Consulting. The memo was simply strategic planning. I searched the name, it was a shell, but the address was linked to a high profile art gallery in Chicago's Gold Coast. This wasn't a clumsy affair, it was a calculated financial extraction. And Julian had an accomplice, masking her payment as a business fee to defraud our estate. I dug further, opening a folder of his synced phone records. He had accidentally shared a calendar with Isabella's cloud account. I found her financial logs. On July 12, 2024, she had received a $50,000 wire transfer. The timing was undeniable. It was the same day she hired a crisis management PR firm. Isabella was his partner in this from the beginning. I exported the records. Next, I checked her own synced expense reports. It was the expected parade of gallery acquisitions and lavish trips. But one charge jumped out. August 3rd, 2024, $10,000 to Lakefront Strategic Solutions. I looked them up. A boutique opposition research firm in Chicago. Pricey, discreet, specializing in corporate sabotage and character assassination. A ringing started in my ears. She had hired investigators to dig up dirt on me, create a false scandal. She was mapping my entire life to find the perfect way to destroy my reputation when this all went down. I pulled up the firm's website. They offered narrative development and reputational shielding. It was the exact toolkit needed to dismantle someone's career while making it look like their own fault. I leaned back, gasping for air. This wasn't about passion, this was a hostile takeover she had been engineering for months. Isabella was creating a case against me. She was manufacturing the perfect grounds to accuse me of professional malpractice. She hired people to track me. She used consultants to hide the money. She planned the data breach. She chose the corporate target, and she documented it all in a folder on my own server like a business plan. My phone lit up, a text from Marcus. "We need to talk, call me." I dismissed the notification. I couldn't talk to him, not until I knew everything. I went back to the cloud drive, which was still open. I looked through the folders, receipts, travel plans, photos, and then I saw it. A folder in Isabella's profile named Project Nightingale. Last modified, September 3rd, 2024, at 10:45 p.m. The same evening, a false rumor about my firm was leaked to an industry blog. My hand trembled as I clicked. This folder contained the proof of my deepest fear. Isabella didn't just frame me. She wrote down the entire plan. But wait, before I show you what was in that project file, her meticulous blueprint for my destruction, you have to be asking, was she working alone? Did Julian know everything? Or is this story about to get much darker? What I discovered was not just a plan, it was a scorched earth campaign against my life. The project, she had logged everything with chilling corporate precision. A quick warning, this story involves intense emotional manipulation. If tales of profound betrayal are difficult for you, this might be a good moment to step away. But if you want to understand how I learned my husband's mistress plotted for months to annihilate my career, stay with me. The folder tells the entire story, and its contents will challenge everything you think you know about jealousy and obsession. I poured a glass of water. I was definitely going to need it. I settled into my chair, the desk lamp casting long shadows, and began to read. The first document was dated May 15th, 2024, long before my world fell apart. I took a deep breath and began. Entry 1. At the gala tonight. Julian wouldn't stop gushing about Clara's new tower design. The Pritzker Prize at 35. I am so tired of hearing her name. I run one of the most successful galleries in Chicago, and to Julian, it's just my charming little business. I will not be a footnote in his wife's success story. I stared at the words. It started with professional envy. My work, my reputation, that was all it took for her to plot my ruin. I remembered that gala. Julian had insisted I go to support her. Isabella was so effusive, hugging me and saying how thrilled she was for me, while secretly seething with resentment. I read on. Entry 12. I have a plan. Clara thinks she's a titan, building her empire of glass and steel. She'll never see this coming. First, I need access to her firm's internal servers. Then, I need the perfect controversy. A structural integrity scandal that would spark a media firestorm so vicious no one would stop to check the facts. My hands grew cold. The perfect controversy. She targeted my skyscraper project, the Apex specifically. This was a targeted assassination. She spent weeks planning it, knowing a high profile failure would incite public panic. I kept reading. Entry 21. Clara has that preservation board meeting at the Palmer House every month. So predictable. I will accidentally meet her there tomorrow. I can get access to her briefcase for a second while she's greeting people. I closed my eyes. June 10th. She was there. She had texted me in the loop for a showing. Drinks after your meeting? I was so naive, thinking she was extending an olive branch. We talked for a minute and I left my briefcase at our table when I stood to greet a colleague. When I came back, Isabella was gone. Texting that her client had arrived early, she had already cloned my office keycard. I read on, a knot forming in my stomach. Entry 30, it's done. Clara's access card is now my access card. She suspects nothing. So trusting, so naive. Now to plan the doctored engineering reports. The woman Julian swore he loved. The woman she saw as a rival, even though my marriage was already failing. I was naive for ever trusting either of them. I made myself continue reading. Entry 38. Saw photos of Clara on an architectural blog today. She looked so confident at the groundbreaking ceremony. That won't last. I went still. July 22nd, the ceremony. I'd felt a prickle of unease that day, but wrote it off as nerves. It wasn't a feeling, it was Isabella, watching me from a distance, already picturing my downfall. Entry 45. I have him, a disgruntled former engineer from her firm. He's bitter and broke. He will be the perfect anonymous source to leak the falsified data about the foundation. He gets new project specs on Tuesdays before the weekly review. It was a masterful setup. When the corporate security team investigated, they would point to gross incompetence. The data leak would be traced to my servers, my credentials, and my professional life would be incinerated without a chance to fight back. Amelia would be trapped. A knot of ice formed in my stomach. She took my life's work, my architecture, and engineered it into a tool for my public execution. She had weaponized my own studio against me. Her digital journal entries were chillingly specific. Entry 52. Wired a data broker $2,000 to handle the file transfer. Money well spent. The hacker she paid to destroy me. This was a deliberate assassination, not a crime of passion. Entry 60. The Donovan Foundation Gala. Amelia isn't going with Julian. Excellent. Her absence supports the narrative that she's overwhelmed and dropping the ball at her firm. I remember that evening. I'd told him the pregnancy was exhausting me, that I needed to rest. I was unknowingly helping her construct my downfall. Entry 68. Obtained the Ghost IP program from a darknet marketplace. $1,000 in untraceable crypto. It perfectly mimics her remote login signature. If questions arise, the source is non-existent. She had planned for every possibility, a cold, methodical strike. Entry 75. The trial run went smoothly. I breached the server using the back door at 2:30 in the morning. No digital watchdogs, no alerts. The path to the project files is wide open. Amelia's cybersecurity is pathetic. My stomach churned. A practice run, she had rehearsed it, mapping the vulnerabilities, confirming she wouldn't get caught. It was a systematic takedown, not an emotional outburst. A rehearsal? On September 2nd, I was at home, nauseous from the first trimester. Across Boston, Isabel was practicing how to dismantle my future. I scrolled to the next entry. Entry 82. The motive is already planted. Julian needs to see she's the imposter I know she is. He once griped to me, Amelia is a control freak about her work. This will show him she's just careless. An anonymous tip to the business journals is set. Perfect, my own husband. Something inside me shattered. He would fall for it. Isabel turned my own drive into a weapon. My ambition, my need for a career outside his shadow, my refusal to just be Mrs. Donovan. To punish me, she engineered this disaster to show I was helpless without his name. I choked back a sob reading her final steps. Journal entry 89, September 16th. Everything is in place. I will leak the Donovan Tower blueprints at 10:17. Amelia has a client presentation, a paper-thin alibi against the server access logs. The media tip follows immediately. By sunrise, Amelia Vance is ruined. Her reputation, her business, her future gone. She will finally understand what it's like to have nothing. Then Julian will see that I'm the one who truly supports him. So long, darling. The breath caught in my throat. She wanted to obliterate me completely, not just harm my career, but demolish my entire life, all orchestrated like a corporate raid. This was a career death blow. I felt numb. For 90 days she plotted my demise. A new entry from today, just hours ago. Entry 90. The story hit the trades. My firm's contracts are frozen. Julian is likely at her brownstone, feigning concern. Let her try to point the finger at me. An accusation from a disgraced architect is meaningless. A private settlement is her best option. Our family lawyers are ready. It's done. The tablet had been left on the sofa at 6 p.m. Isabel was oblivious that I held her entire confession. She had no idea she'd left her tablet in my study, or that I now had screenshots of her crypto transfers, her chats with a hacker, and her texts with my husband. She thought her plan was airtight. Her hubris was the fatal flaw. I closed the file, sitting alone in our silent Boston brownstone. My tea was untouched. Dawn lit the parlor, but I felt a deep cold. The evidence was damning. A 90-day plot to frame me for corporate espionage. Digital receipts, IP logs, a full confession in her private journal. Yet I couldn't move. I couldn't just take this to the police. Isabel would claim I stole her tablet and fabricated the entries. Julian would unleash his family's legal team to crush me. Their circle would lie for them in court. Discovering her journal was a legal minefield. Her lawyers would call the proof inadmissible. I needed a strategy, not just screenshots on my phone. I dumped the cold tea and looked out over the city. Isabel was somewhere in Boston, going about her day, pretending to care about my plight. She was completely unaware that I knew everything, oblivious that I had spent the night dissecting her treachery. She always saw me as the naive artist, easily dismissed. Wrong, I needed help from someone outside Julian's network. I held my phone, thumb hovering over the number for the Boston Police Department. My hand shook. Calling would ignite a media firestorm, dragging my marriage and our baby through a spectacle. Isabel would know I'd found her out. Then I thought of my team, now jobless, and my child's future. 90 days of calculated betrayal by my friend. I hit dial. The line connected on the second ring. Boston Police, how may I direct your call? I have to talk to the detective handling my case, I said, my voice firm. My name is Amelia Vance. I received the legal notice 2 days ago. The case number is 81831. There was a short pause. That would be Detective Harding. Corporate Fraud Division, one moment. The hold music was grating. A weary, deep voice came on the line. Harding. Detective, my name is Amelia Vance. I am the primary subject in the Donovan Tower data breach. I'm aware of who you are, Mrs. Vance. This is not standard procedure. Your attorney should handle this. I was set up, I interrupted. I have proof. It was my husband's partner. I need an hour. A long silence. Your lawyer mentioned you might pull a stunt. I have her tablet, I stated. Her private journal. The line was dead quiet. His response was clipped. Headquarters, 2 o'clock. Come alone. I arrived at 1:55, the tablet in my bag with a backup drive. Harding was waiting. He was mid-40s, built like an ex-football player. He was in a plain suit, his badge on his belt, no handshake. This way. We navigated desks to a sterile interrogation room. 30 minutes, he said, nodding to a chair. Start. I woke the tablet and opened her journal. These are private entries from Isabel Reed. She left this tablet at my home. I angled the display for him. This is from August 5th, 2024. Harding leaned in. It read, Found the exploit. Donovan Tower files. Amelia has access. The perfect fall guy. Julian is paranoid about his project's blueprints. When he gets compromised, the inquiry will take the easy path. They'll blame her with the digital trail I leave, and the actual theft will be ignored. Amelia's career will be finished. His expression tightened. More? I scrolled to October 20th, the night of the leak. It's all set. Transfer at 10:30, Amelia's at prenatal yoga, a flimsy alibi. I'll use her credentials to forge the path. My contact at a rival firm discovers the leak. By dawn, Amelia faces espionage charges. Harding reread it. It's a confession. How do I know you didn't write it? I expected that. Verify the tablet's metadata. Every entry is time-stamped. Corroborate them with Isabel's social media posts and purchase records. The final access was the night of the data breach. The tablet's GPS places her at her condo in Beacon Hill. I opened a different folder. Here's the crypto transfer to the hacker and their encrypted chat history. I also have an unbreakable alibi, but no one looked into it before charging me. I had a high-risk ultrasound from 9 to 10 p.m. that night. The medical center has the full session on a time-coded, secure server. A court order will confirm it. Harding's gaze sharpened. Why didn't your attorney bring this up? Julian's corporate counsel is managing the PR fallout for the company, I explained, not clearing my name. He's handling the legal crisis for my husband. Peterson rose, circling the small office. He was quiet for a long moment, then faced me. If this is legitimate, it's beyond leaking trade secrets. It's wire fraud and a conspiracy to obstruct. Is your husband involved? He was with Isabel. I told him they were at Leo's Beacon Hill condo, far from my gallery. How are you certain? It's all on the drive. Her encrypted chat logs confirm everything. Peterson studied me, then picked up his phone. Grant, get to my office. Immediately. A younger man walked in seconds later. He was in his early 30s, sharp-eyed and holding a sleek laptop. He gave me a quick, respectful nod. Mr. Grant, I began softly. I'm so sorry for the trouble this brought Mr. Rossi, but I'm innocent and I have the proof right here. Peterson handed him my laptop. Look at this. Grant scanned the screen. I saw his expression shift from professional interest to shock, then to a controlled fury. He reviewed the files again. He looked from Peterson to me. Sir, is this verified? The cloud drive is authentic, Peterson confirmed. We have a data trail and a clear alibi that was ignored. Grant's eyes met mine, his voice tight. Your own cousin framed you. She used that particular art project. Yes, I answered, because my role as project archivist gave me total access, making me the only viable suspect. She knew they would focus on me and miss the obvious. Grant's hand clenched by his side. He faced Peterson. I should recuse myself, but sir, we have to bring her in. Peterson nodded once. I agree, but this will be done carefully. He looked at me. Mrs. Rossi, this action will detonate your family. Your cousin is facing serious federal charges. Your husband could be implicated in a conspiracy. Are you prepared for that? I remembered Isabel's cruel messages from the chat logs. He's almost all mine. I thought of my baby and the net of lies choking me. I met Peterson's gaze. Yes, but I have a condition. Peterson raised an eyebrow. I want to be there when you call Isabel in. I want her to look at me. Later that day, Peterson made the arrangements. I sat in his office, the speakerphone on, as he dialed my cousin's number. I was perfectly still, my heart hammering my ribs. This is our approach, Peterson had laid out minutes before. We will ask her to provide a statement as a worried relative. She'll arrive alone. You'll be the distraught victim needing support. She will assume she is there to seal your fate. And it's all being recorded? I'd asked. Audio and visual. Two-way glass. The whole setup. If she says anything incriminating, it's done. Peterson had leaned forward. But Amelia, you cannot appear hostile. No leading her, no accusations. Present the evidence piece by piece and let her trap herself. Can you manage that? I had met his eyes directly. I have been cleaning up Isabel's disasters my whole life. This time she will pay for one. As Isabel's phone began to ring, Peterson's tone became smooth and professional. Miss Vance, this is Marcus Peterson. I'm the Rossi family attorney. I'm calling regarding a financial matter. Isabel's voice was guarded when she replied. Yes, what about it? We understand you are Amelia Rossi's cousin. We thought you could come by tomorrow and give a statement. It might clarify some recent events. A brief silence. Then Isabel's voice became thick with fake sympathy. Of course, Marcus. Anything for Amelia. She could never do something like this. 10 a.m. at my firm. You won't need a lawyer. This is just an informal chat. I'll be there, Isabel said. The call disconnected. Peterson looked at me. She seems eager. She thinks she's coming to finish me off, I said. Good. Let her believe that until the door locks behind her. Peterson used the next hour for preparation. We were in the conference room, his notes before him, the files from the drive on a firm laptop. Go slow, he said. Let her get comfortable, then present one conflicting fact. Don't reveal all your cards, just give her small bits. Let her lie. And when she deflects, she will, let her. Each lie builds her prison. He tapped a pen on the glass. You know her habits. When Isabel fiddles with that bracelet, she's hiding something. That little throat clearing she does, that's her tell. Arms folded means she's blocking. What if she leaves? She's not detained. She could. But someone like her must control the narrative. She'll stay. I absorbed every word from our counsel. Peterson finally got up. Go home, Amelia, get some sleep. You need to be sharp for tomorrow. I didn't go home. I found a quiet place overlooking the Boston Harbor, sipping soda water and watching the lights on the water. I thought of everyone out there with normal lives, untouched by this sort of venom. I saw Isabel at 19, caught plagiarizing a paper and crying until I said the work was mine. I took the suspension. Amelia, you'll always have my back, won't you? She'd asked. Always, I had vowed. I thought of her at 25, maxing out my credit cards in Europe. I paid off the $30,000 balance without a word of thanks. I recalled finding the DMs on the shared family laptop, detailing her affair with my husband Leo. She never apologized for that either. Big sisters are meant to protect, to forgive, and to forget. For that loyalty, Isabel had built a scheme to wreck my life and take my husband. I returned to our Beacon Hill condo late that night. I knew I wouldn't sleep. I just sat, rereading their chat logs. He will be mine. By summer, she will be gone. It just takes one last shove. I stood in the bathroom rehearsing my first question until my tone was flat and cold. Isabel, tell me about that weekend at the vineyard. I repeated it until 2 a.m. At 4, I was watching the sky lighten over the harbor. My phone buzzed at 7 a.m. A text from Isabel. And Carol just called me. She's frantic about some legal issue in the family. I'm so worried for you. What is happening? I looked at the message. She was probing, trying to get me to help build her alibi. I replied, just tell the truth, Isabel. That's all you have to do. I pressed send. The ellipsis bubble appeared, vanished, and came back. Her answer was brief. Of course. You are my rock. I put the phone down, a knot of ice in my gut. In under 2 hours, Isabel would enter that law firm playing the concerned cousin. She didn't know she was the lead in her own tragedy. I got to the law office at 8:45. Peterson led me to a conference room. It was stark, with a long glass table and a speakerphone in the middle. A huge window framed the Boston skyline. Leo's counsel is on the line, Peterson said. He was insistent. I simply nodded. This meeting is being recorded. My paralegal will bring her in. You'll be seated. I say you asked to discuss a personal family matter, then I'll go. If she resists, say you need her. Stay composed. I looked at the speakerphone. I could not hear Leo, but I sensed him there, waiting for the outcome for the wife whose life his mistress tried to ruin. What if she just denies it? I asked. Peterson's face was unreadable. Then we file for divorce with what we already have. But if she admits it, he began. We control everything, I finished. At 9:55, the intercom sounded. Your 10 o'clock is here. He gave me a final look. Ready? I saw months of betrayal. I saw the baby she tried to erase. I saw Leo's text. You are my whole world. I sat down facing the door. I'm ready. The room was cool. I placed my hands on the cold glass table and I waited. At exactly 10 o'clock, the door swung open. A paralegal showed Isabel in. She wore a designer suit and carried a high-end handbag. Her hair and makeup were perfect. She appeared poised, warm, and deeply worried. Then she saw me. Her well-rehearsed smile wavered. Amelia, I was told I was meeting with the family lawyer. My voice was even. Sit down, Isabel. She paused, glancing at the paralegal, who motioned to a chair before shutting the door. Isabel sat, her gaze sweeping the room, stopping at the speakerphone. What is this about? Where is Leo? This doesn't concern Leo, I said. This is about you. Isabel attempted a weak smile. Amelia, whatever you have heard, it is just gossip. I'm here to help you fix this. Her eyes darted to the speakerphone. I don't understand. You will soon. I opened the file and slid a paper across the table. Isabel, explain this $60,000 transfer. She went rigid. The color drained from her face. It was for materials. A stipend for my art. Where did you... Just answer the question. Her jaw tightened. It was an investment for my gallery, a professional expense. I pushed a second page at her. And this ledger, showing Leo's private account, funded your entire solo exhibit last fall? Isabel's hands went flat against the glass. Hacking his private accounts is a crime. Our divorce counsel hired a digital forensics team. Every dime he moved is now a matter of record. Sophie's lips drew into a tight pale line. I leaned closer. Sophie, did you tell Marcus I was becoming mentally unstable? Silence. Not once. Never. After the charity gala, you were there. I was supporting a cause. You were there because you knew we would be. You watch our schedule. I slid a screenshot across the table. A text where she asked a friend if Marcus and I were attending. You pulled him aside for 10 minutes. He was different when he returned. Sophie glanced at the text. That is circumstantial. What did you say to him, Sophie? Her hand reached for her purse. Don't, I said quietly. I know what you said. I saw the notes you kept, the ones that synced to our new home tablet from your apartment in the North End. Sophie's hand stopped. She clutched her purse, her knuckles bone white. For the first time, she looked cornered. This is absurd. You are imagining this, Clara. We are sisters, are we? I interrupted, my voice quiet but sharp. Sisters don't conspire for months to have a man commit his pregnant wife. Sophie was perfectly still. What are you talking about? I reached into my bag again. This time I produced her notes. 3 months of entries, printed out and highlighted. I placed them down, one by one, like cards showing a terrible future. Sophie's eyes went wide. What is this? Let me read you an entry, Sophie. This one is titled Phase 1, Sowing the Seeds of Doubt. I held up the first page. Day 1, March 12th, the gala tonight. Marcus went on and on about the nursery. Clara, so perfect at 34. Clara, the brilliant philanthropist. I am tired of her name. I run a photography studio, and my family calls it a cute hobby. I am done living in her shadow. Sophie's face was ashen. I continued. Day 15, March 27th. I see the way forward now. Clara believes she is untouchable in her pristine world. She will not see me coming. I will plant the seed that her pregnancy has made her paranoid. A manufactured donor scandal will guarantee Marcus gets sole custody. Sophie shook her head. Stop. Where did you get that? Day 28, April 9th. Clara visits her parents on Sundays. So predictable. I will drop by next weekend. Casually bring up her unpredictable moods. I looked directly at her. You did drop by, Sophie. You embraced me. You said you couldn't wait to be an aunt, and then you lied about me. I did not. Day 35, April 16th. It is working. I told Marcus she seemed paranoid about her charity. He is starting to listen. He is so naive. My voice broke on the last word, but I pressed on. Day 47, April 28th. I found the perfect strategy. I told him she accused me of trying to damage her reputation. With a baby coming, her hormones are the perfect explanation. He will see me as the rational one he can trust. Clara will have no defense. Sophie was taking short, sharp breaths. You cannot use that. It is private. Day 75, June 2nd, the studio funding came through. He gave me the check tonight. He said I understood his ambition in a way she never could. He is so close to being mine. I set the page down and held her gaze. You conspired, Sophie. You and my husband made a plan to take my child from me. Tears formed in her eyes, but I was not finished. Day 82, June 9th. I gave Marcus the final push. I said he must act before the baby is born or he will be trapped. I told him with her instability he would win custody. He agreed to confront her after the annual report is released. Sophie whispered, Clara, don't. Day 89, June 16th. The report goes public tomorrow. He will tell her that evening. She will fall apart, proving my point. He will file for divorce, citing her mental incompetence. She will lose her husband, her career, and her child. She will finally understand worthlessness, and I will be there for Marcus. Goodbye, my dear sister. I put the final page on the table. The cafe was completely silent, filled only with Sophie's panicked, shallow breathing. She stared at the pages, her entire plan laid out. I can explain this, she managed to say. Can you? I asked, leaning back. Because I am all ears, Sophie. Explain how you and my husband schemed for 3 months to have me declared an unfit mother. Explain the dummy corporation. Explain the fraudulent art invoices. Explain why you involved my unborn child. Because you knew my husband's business partners would flee before the truth could surface. Sophie opened her mouth, but only a strangled noise escaped. My phone, inside my purse, was recording every lie she had ever told and the confession that was about to come. Go on, I prompted softly. Explain all of it. Because in the next moment she shatters. The accounts, the wire transfers, the bitter jealousy, it pours out. And her final screamed words, I wanted your entire world to burn, are already on their way to my lawyer. This narrative is a work of fiction. This story does not involve real people. But if you are interested in how my sister's envy destroyed her own life, continue. This is a family's final horrible act. Sophie's mouth moved, then snapped shut. I was not, she stammered, her fingers trembling. You are misinterpreting those wire transfers. It was research for a difficult new photography series. I examined those kinds of financial trails. Sophie. My voice was pure ice. The plan. Tell me about the plan. Her arrogant facade began to fracture. You can't use my private notes. That's a violation of privacy, Clara. You cannot. Legally acquired by a forensic accountant, I replied. Entirely admissible. My husband's business accounts do not protect a criminal conspiracy. But they were just ideas. Her voice became thin. Just angry thoughts. I never acted. I slid the last piece of the puzzle across the table. A photo from the investigator. It showed Sophie at a private airfield outside Boston, accepting a file from a known tabloid writer. Marcus's corporate jet sat on the runway behind them. That plane belongs to my husband's development company. You had access to it. This was taken last Tuesday at 7 p.m. My charity's largest gala started at 7:30. I was at the venue. I held her gaze. But you were there. Sophie stared at the photograph, her breathing fast and shallow. She jumped to her feet, her chair making a screeching sound on the floor. You think you are so clever, don't you? Her voice was pure poison. I remained seated at the table. Sophie slammed her hands on the small marble top. You got it all, the society columns, the perfect marriage, Marcus's entire fortune. So you chose to destroy it all? I asked quietly. Yes. Her voice broke, tears smearing her makeup. I wanted you to fail. I wanted you to watch your entire life be condemned. I leaned forward. And my baby was meant to be collateral damage? Sophie's laugh was a terrible, sharp noise. I never gave a damn about the baby. This was about you. To make you pay for stealing the life that was supposed to be mine. The cafe was silent but for her ragged breathing. My voice was a whisper. So you confess. You colluded with my husband. You leaked false stories to the press. You wanted to ruin me. Sophie's expression changed. The rage disappeared, replaced by a sudden, cold terror. No, wait, that's not what I meant. I held up my phone and pressed the screen, putting it on speaker. My lawyer's voice filled the space, calm and methodical. I have the entire recording, Clara. It is definitive. His voice became sharper. Sophie Hayes. This serves as a full confession. Expect service within the hour for conspiracy to commit fraud, libel, and reckless endangerment. She looked at me, her eyes pleading. Clara, please. We are family. Marcus will face his own legal issues. I stood, meeting her gaze. You stopped being family 3 months ago. My lawyer kept talking, outlining what would happen next. A temporary restraining order is now active. Your assets will be frozen. Do not attempt to contact her. Do not leave the Boston area. Sophie was weeping openly now. Clara, Clara, I am so sorry. I did not mean it, I promise. I ended the call and walked out of the cafe. The fake invoices were in the file. The transfer records, the server data, all the proof it took 1 week to find, to understand, to tear her world down as she tried to tear down mine. I expected to feel triumphant, powerful something. Instead, a profound emptiness settled in my stomach. The hardest part was still coming. I remembered a story about a rival artist from her college expelled for plagiarism based on thin evidence. I knew then this was not Sophie's first time. Her last victim was still somewhere, dealing with the consequences. My lawyer's car pulled up to the curb. He looked tired. You handled that perfectly, he said. The admission was undeniable, freely given. The case is solid. I simply nodded. Detective Miller sat across from me. We have argued against bail. She is a flight risk and a continuing danger. The DA is filing charges this afternoon. Conspiracy is on the list. She could face a minimum of 10 years. And Marcus? I asked, my voice faint. We are bringing him in for questioning this evening. Your sister is attempting to blame him for everything. We checked her cloud accounts. An email from Sophie's address went to a gossip blog moments after she secured the studio funding. She was boasting just like you predicted. My lawyer called. He's making his move, Cole warned. Isabella is pressing charges, claiming harassment. You exposed a dangerous man, Elena. He won't stop. I stared at the wall. He will ruin me from afar. Cole's voice was grim. We'll fight it, something else. His financials showed a flag. A settlement from 3 years ago with an architect, a Marcus Vance. Marcus was fired for catastrophic negligence, lost his license and his firm. Now he designs strip malls. A chill crept up my spine. What's this got to do with Julian? Marcus worked at Julian's old Chicago firm. The evidence was all digital, faked blueprints. Isabella was the intern who supposedly discovered it. My office began to spin. Julian and Isabella framed him. It's our belief. Marcus screamed his innocence, but the digital trail was flawless. Cole gave me a card. He lives in Evanston. Find him. After he left, I saw the truth. Julian had practiced this before. He had a blueprint for destroying lives. By evening, Julian's legal threats arrived. By 9, his father called to intimidate me. By 10, I was in our storage unit digging for the very thing that could save me. Cole had called me again. Julian's father hired the best firm in Chicago. They're filing for an emergency injunction, claiming you're unstable. I never threatened her, I said. He's building a narrative. I know, but they will fight dirty. One other thing, that settlement with Marcus Vance I found. You need to look into it, Elena. If Julian has a history, it shows a pattern. It proves he is a predator, not just a cheating husband. I hung up and opened a box of old hard drives. Cole's words haunted me. Men like this don't just snap, they build up to it. I plugged in an old drive from my husband's desk, searching past recent backups. Past 2025 to 2023. I found it, a folder labeled Lakeview Project. Files appeared, architectural drawings, emails, and a subfolder named Vance. My heart sank. I clicked on an email chain. It was between Julian and Isabella, dated April of 2023. First day, April 3rd. Vance thinks he's a genius. The client loves him. His new cantilever design is brilliant. I'm sick of being his number 2. He needs to go. I scrolled down. Day 10, April 13th. I have a way to bury Vance. His lead on the Lakeview Tower. If the structural plans fail inspection, it's all on him. Day 20, April 23rd. I have his server password. He left his laptop open at lunch. So careless. Day 40, May 15th. I'm swapping the steel specs in the master file tonight under his login. The foundation will be flagged as unsafe. By morning, he'll be finished, and I'll be the one to save the project. My blood ran cold. Julian had done this before, destroying a rival 3 years before coming after me. I searched Marcus Vance Chicago Architect. The top hit was a trade publication article from May 17, 2023. Vance fired from Sterling Architects in safety scandal. The article was short and brutal. Chicago firm Sterling Architects has fired lead designer Marcus Vance for gross negligence. Insiders report a falsified structural analysis that put a major project at risk. Vance denies the allegations, claiming sabotage. I was framed, Vance stated. Someone wanted me out. The firm planned to pursue legal action to recover its losses. I kept digging. An encrypted folder from 2022 was next. Peterson transfer. It was a payment from my husband Julian to an art gallery for $75,000. An email from Isabella was attached. She took the deal. Her name is Mud in Chicago. Career's over. I found a woman, a curator named Anna Peterson, online. Her profile picture showed her at a gallery opening, vibrant and happy. Her bio was simple: seeking new roles in gallery management. Her last post was from October of 2022. 3 years of silence. Her social media was a ghost town. A quick search showed she lived in a small apartment in Pilsen. The rent was just $900 a month. It was a place for someone whose life had been demolished. I stared at the monitor. Julian and Isabella had ruined this woman just as they were trying to ruin me. And Anna had lived with the fallout for 3 years. I dialed my lawyer, Cole. I found another one, I said. A curator, Anna Peterson, from 3 years ago. It's the same pattern. An accusation of fraud, a clean digital trail, a career completely destroyed. Send it all over, Cole said. This proves a clear pattern. It makes our case that you're the next victim. I'm going to see her, I told him. She deserves to know the truth. Elena, be smart about this. If they ruined her, she wants justice, I cut in. So do I. I hung up, took my keys, and drove towards Pilsen. The rundown building was a far cry from the art world Anna once inhabited. At 7 p.m., I knocked on a faded door in a worn-out building. After a moment, a lock clicked. A woman, looking tired and defeated, opened it slightly. She was a ghost of her profile picture. Can I help you? Are you Marcus? She watched me, suspicious. Who is it? My name is Elena. My husband is Julian Thorne. His business partner, Isabella, helped him destroy your career. Now they're trying to destroy me. We need to talk. The door swung open. The apartment was a tiny, sparse room for surviving, not living. A small kitchenette was in one corner. There was no art on the walls, just a laptop on a folding table. Marcus pointed to a single chair. Have a seat. I don't have much to offer. He leaned against the wall, arms folded. You said Julian ruined your career. He and Isabella. We were all at the same firm 3 years ago. I know, I said. I found something of his. I pulled an old hard drive out of my purse and handed it to him, along with a tablet. This is a copy of Julian's old work drive. Marcus's hand shook as he navigated the files. His face turned ashen. Project blueprints, he breathed. He was keeping a log. Marcus is getting all the credit for the tower design. Then, time to put him back in his place. And then, got his login. I'll change the rebar specs. His voice broke. Execute. Blame the failure and the cost on him. My God, he whispered. He documented the whole thing. It's all right here. Just like he's documenting how to take my child, I said quietly. Marcus sank into the chair, staring at the screen. I told them he set me up. The partners, my friends, my own family, nobody believed me. He looked up, his eyes full of tears. The gaslighting from my own husband felt just as sharp. I believe you, I said. Those words seemed to break through his defenses. He nodded slowly. Tell me everything, I urged. Marcus took a deep breath. 3 years ago, I was his star architect. I was on track for a partnership. Julian was my boss. Isabella started as a junior designer. She seemed harmless, but she was viciously ambitious. She'd find tiny flaws in my work, making me look careless. She made my dream project a nightmare. Marcus's jaw tightened. Then, in May of 2023, the tower project failed its structural review. The rebar specs were wrong. Server logs showed I made the final fatal change. I was fired on the spot. I exhausted my savings fighting it. What happened? The digital proof was perfect, Marcus said. My attorney told me to sign a non-disclosure and leave, or they'd sue me into oblivion. My career was gone. The entire Chicago architecture community shut me out. I must have sent 500 applications. I got a few interviews out of pity, but nothing. He looked around the small room. I'm a barista now, just to make rent. My parents disowned me after the scandal. His voice dropped. I lost my whole life because of them. But Marcus had no proof. He was just another casualty, as Julian and Isabella moved on to me and my unborn child. Marcus, I said, I have his hard drive. This is the proof. And with what they're trying to do now, we can make people listen. His eyes widened. Do you think so? This is his playbook, I urged. He did this to me 3 years back. Now he's doing it to you. He finds a partner, exploits their talent, then engineers a corporate disaster to seize control. If we show a lawyer this pattern, they'll see a predator. Olivia was silent. If we do this, can I save my career? I can't promise that, I said. But we have to fight. Olivia paused for a second, then hid her face in her hands. When she looked up, her fear was laced with a new determination. What's the plan? See me at my attorney's office tomorrow, I replied. Tell him everything that went down in 2023. I'll provide the decrypted server files as proof. His name is Mr. Davis. He's already on my case and will see the link. Will he even take me seriously? Olivia asked, her voice shaking. He must, I said with conviction, because this time we have Ethan's entire scheme in writing. You aren't just an old grudge. You're the first casualty in his documented history of corporate sabotage. Olivia nodded slowly. All right, I'm in. One more thing, I added. If we proceed, his legal team will be vicious. They will paint you as a bitter, vengeful employee trying to get a payday. They'll try to destroy your reputation. Olivia's expression hardened. Let them. I've been sidelined for a year. This time I'm fighting back. I got up and offered my hand. We fight together. She stood and clasped it. Together. On my drive home, my phone vibrated, a notification from my bank. Wire transfer authorized $1 million. Ethan was draining our shared investment portfolio. A cold dread washed over me. I recalled his confident smirk that morning. But Ethan didn't know I had the server files. He didn't know I had found Leo, and he was clueless about what was about to happen. Davies, I said into my phone, I need Leo to give a deposition tomorrow, and I want you to request an emergency asset freeze. This isn't just a divorce, this is corporate fraud. We are going to expose him as a serial predator. The following week was a blur of legal strategy sessions. On Friday, November 8th, Olivia and I sat with Davies and his chief investigator in a conference room. Davies was in his late 50s, known for taking down San Francisco's most untouchable executives. His investigator called him a barracuda. Perfect, we needed a barracuda. Leo recounted his story calmly. The partnership, the deception, and the faked server logs that got him fired. His voice was steady, but his hands were fists in his lap, as he recalled being escorted out by security, the smear campaign, and even his own parents doubting him. Davies listened, his expression unreadable. He did not take a single note. Olivia explained her side to the lawyer with quiet intensity. When she was done, Davies leaned back in his chair. Why now? Her voice was a whisper, her hands twisting together. I needed proof. He would have twisted everything. The evidence was irrefutable. I slid the encrypted hard drive across the table. This is my proof. Davies plugged it in, his face hardening as he read the logs. His jaw clenched as he understood Ethan's affair with Jenna and their conspiracy. When he looked up, his eyes were glacial. This is meticulous, calculated betrayal. Mrs. Hayes, we file on Monday. Olivia finally let a single tear escape. Thank you. Davies nodded, ejecting the drive. I will need this and any other evidence you possess. By Friday, November 15th, Davies' office had a whiteboard covered in flowcharts. There's 2 timelines. 2023, Leo Valdez. June, co-founder ousted. July, $2 million IP loss blamed on him. Valdez ruined. 2026, Olivia Hayes. October, affair confirmed. November, plan to liquidate shared assets. December, scheme to discredit her. Davies studied the board. He's a narcissist with a formula. It's his MO Finn, the investigator agreed. This pattern builds a strong civil RICO case. I want it all, Davies said. Every transaction, every message between him and that woman. I projected my laptop onto the monitor, revealing what else I had discovered. The chat logs between Ethan and Jenna. Financial records showing payments to her from their joint funds, digital breadcrumbs from his phone. Our key witnesses, Olivia Hayes and Leo Valdez. The doorman who saw Jenna at their penthouse constantly. Davies' paralegal, a sharp woman in her late 20s, typed furiously, organizing the mountain of evidence. She was quiet, but I could see her structuring the very case Davies would argue in court. When I was done, Davies glanced at Finn. What about the audio from his office? Rock solid, Finn confirmed. He admitted to everything. Ethan was caught on the bug I planted, telling Jenna he wanted Olivia out of the picture and didn't care what it cost. A thin, cold smile formed on Davies' lips. Perfect. We'll let him hang himself. On Saturday, November 16th, Davies summoned us. Olivia and I sat opposite him as Finn stood nearby. He opened a massive binder. These are the charges we are filing against Ethan Hayes and Jenna Cole. He began reading the list. For the 2026 plot, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, embezzlement, Computer Fraud and Abuse Act violations, and conspiracy to defraud. He turned the page. For the 2023 fiscal year, grand larceny of $500,000, securities fraud, and multiple counts of intellectual property theft. Another page, and a RICO charge for running his tech firm as a criminal enterprise. We are also seeking an aggravated sentence due to the systematic nature of these crimes. Mr. Davies met our eyes. A conviction on all counts means a mandatory 20 to 25 years. He won't see parole for at least 12. The silence in the room was crushing. 25 years. Ethan would be an old man. After Leo departed, the office atmosphere felt grim. Ethan's parents shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. What about them? I asked, my voice barely audible. Davies's expression softened a bit. David and Sarah are also indicted for conspiracy and for providing a false alibi. If they cooperate, they could get house arrest. If not, his voice trailed off. They're facing 1 to 3 years each. I just nodded. They chose their side. Davies closed the heavy binder. The arraignment is Tuesday at 10 a.m., and they will plead not guilty. After that, the real battle begins. I'll need you both to testify. Olivia and Leo exchanged a look. He gave a firm nod. We will be there. Outside the law firm, the San Francisco fog was thick and chilled. The November air off the bay smelled of salt and traffic. Olivia and I walked to the parking garage without a word. Only when we reached my car did her strength finally waver. Leo, her voice was thin. Thank you for standing with me, for being so brave. I looked at her, the wife of the man who had tried to destroy my life. A firm resolve hardened within me. This was about more than just clearing my name. It was about ensuring Ethan could never victimize anyone else. It's not over, I told her. The trial starts after his plea. Olivia nodded. I am ready, but I saw the fear in her eyes, knowing Ethan was still free on bail. He knew she was the one who uncovered the encrypted server. He knew about the Shell Corporation, about me, and about the case Davies was building. A cornered animal is a dangerous one. I recalled a line from his private log, day 60. If O finds out, it is her word against mine. But now we had his entire playbook. And Ethan knew we had it, meaning he would either run or fight dirty. I wasn't sure which was worse. Tuesday, November 19th, at the Hall of Justice. I watched my former partner denied 12 felony charges. The courtroom was jammed, with journalists crowding the back. My family sat with the district attorneys. Ethan's parents were right behind him, their own lawyers separating them. He looked completely isolated. Ethan was dressed in a designer charcoal suit, appearing composed and unfazed. He was still walking free. The judge, a formidable woman named Judge Chen, looked down from the bench. Ethan Hayes, you are charged with 12 counts, including conspiracy to defraud, multiple counts of contract fraud, grand larceny, perjury, numerous wire fraud violations, and racketeering under the RICO statute. The indictment was a pounding rhythm. Each charge landed like a punch. How do you plead? Ethan's voice was steady and cool. Not guilty, Your Honor. A cold dread filled me. He was going to fight this lie by lie. Davies rose. Your Honor, the state requests that the defendant be remanded. He presents a clear danger to the primary witness, his wife, Olivia Hayes. Morrison, Ethan's attorney, was on his feet instantly. My client has surrendered his passport, Your Honor. He has no intention of leaving San Francisco. Judge Chen locked eyes with Ethan. Bail is continued. But Mr. Hayes, you are to have zero contact with Olivia Hayes or Leo Valdez. Any violation of this order means immediate remand. Is that clear? Yes, Your Honor. The trial is set for January 6th. 2027. This court is adjourned. The gavel cracked. I stood and let the throng push me into the hall. I saw them there. Ethan, his parents, and Morrison already huddled together. His father, David, intercepted me. Leo, we need to sort this out within the family. I kept moving. We have nothing to sort out. His mother's tone was desperate. Please, son, Ethan made a terrible mistake, but he loves you like a brother. I stopped and turned to them. He tried to frame me for his own felonies. That is not a mistake. That is pure evil. His sister Sophie stood in my way, her face twisted with fury. You ruined him, Clara, I answered quietly. Julian ruined us 2 months ago. A court officer touched my arm. Ma'am, we need to go. She shot me a look of pure venom as her attorneys led her away. I saw them go, feeling the finality of that moment in the cold, cavernous hall. The next few weeks were a blur of legal strategy sessions. The first week was spent with Davies, my lawyer, prepping me for the deposition. Only answer the question asked. Give them nothing extra. They will paint you as a scorned wife. Do not react. We went over the evidence for hours: offshore bank statements, shell corporation deeds, falsified investment reports, exhibit by exhibit. Then week 2 began. Ava Chen was formally added as a witness for our side. 3 years after Julian had forced her out of their startup, she was ready to face him. Davies set up a meeting. She was frail, but her eyes were like steel. Thank you, she whispered, for exposing him, for giving me my name back. I expressed my sorrow for all Julian had put her through. He did that, not you. A small smile appeared. You're the one who stopped him. Her children were still dealing with the financial and emotional fallout. Davies moved to have evidence from Ava's business dispute admitted. I watched on a screen as she described the doctored equity agreements, how her professional world was stolen. I had to turn away. Week 3, their team tried to get the server data thrown out. They cited founder investor confidentiality. Judge Miller scoffed. This is criminal fraud. Privilege doesn't apply. Motion denied. They questioned the data's chain of custody, also denied. The digital trail was irrefutable. Ava's deposition followed. I waited outside as she testified to 2 years of his systematic gaslighting. She will be merciless. For 2 hours, Julian's lawyer will try to break you. Don't you dare let her. My attorney had coached me the evening before. Your deposition is blocked for 4 hours. They'll claim you're emotionally unstable. He's going to say the manuscript was just a creative fantasy, that you're reading too much into it. Hold firm, I will. He'll argue that finding it in his private study was an invasion of privacy. His entire case is built on creating doubt. You have to be unbreakable. I nodded. Harrison continued. Clara, I've seen the worst divorces in 20 years. I've never encountered narcissism on this level. Most men hide their tracks. Julian commissioned a fairy tale about his betrayal. That's our silver bullet. His own elaborate fantasy is what will destroy him. What if they say it was just a story? Then we play the voicemail from Sophie, her giddy little laugh. Our fairy tale is finally coming true. You cannot manufacture that level of smug certainty. Her own brother can't defend against it. He got up. Go home, Clara. Rest. On Monday, November the 6th, at 9 a.m., we begin to dismantle his empire. Sleep felt like a distant memory. Staring out at the harbor, I saw Sophie's face at the settlement meeting, not regretful, but triumphant. She was utterly convinced she had already won. Her family's strategy was clear. Paint me as the unstable, jealous wife trying to score a bigger payout. Just plant a seed of doubt. But they had no counter for Sophie's own voice on that recording. I had listened to it 100 times, letting it forge a shield of ice around my heart. Each time Sophie chirped, "Our fairy tale is finally coming true," another part of me turned to steel. Tomorrow a judge would hear it. They would see the commissioned manuscript. They would learn about the secret trust fund. They would hear my testimony about finding the Sophie story in his private library. And they would rule if my husband would lose half of his fortune or if he'd get away with it all. November 6th, 2023. The Thorne divorce trial began on a crisp, clear Boston morning. The 5-day trial was agonizing. The courtroom was full, the city hungry for the implosion of a tech giant. I stood in our Beacon Hill brownstone, 8 months pregnant, with my sister Sophie beside me. From the penthouse floor, the lights of Boston were a glittering carpet below. My husband, Julian, the tech mogul worth millions, had given me everything. Sophie had always feigned admiration. "He worships you, Clara," she'd constantly say. "This home, the baby, your life, is a perfect fairy tale." I only heard sisterly affection, totally blind to the corrosive envy beneath the surface. I thought she was my anchor, my most trusted friend. The next day, I was in Julian's library looking for a rare book he'd promised to a charity auction. My eyes landed on a custom bound leather manuscript on his desk, something he'd called a passion project. The cover was embossed with J plus S. A sense of dread crept over me. I opened it. Tucked inside the cover was a handwritten dedication. My heart stopped. It said, "For Sophie, my true north." The story was a thinly veiled fairy tale about their affair. The illustrations were of them. The hero's castle was a perfect image of a home he'd secretly bought. My reality shattered as I turned the pages. This wasn't a passion project, it was the blueprint for their life together. I felt our baby stir, an innocent soul trapped in this deception. The entire book was a monument to his betrayal. When Julian got home that night, excited about closing a new round of funding, I was waiting for him. The damning manuscript was open on the marble island in our kitchen. His victorious grin vanished, replaced by the pale, trapped expression of a man whose carefully constructed world had just been exposed. He tried to dismiss it, calling it a creative exercise, a fantasy piece he'd commissioned. But the intimate personal details woven into the story were undeniable. His excuses were weak and insulting. I told him to put his keys on the island and get out. He left, and the silence in our new brownstone was deafening. The life he had so meticulously built for me was nothing more than an elaborate fraud. I watched the boats on the Charles River, my own future suddenly unmoored. I asked Sophie to meet me for coffee. She arrived not with guilt in her eyes, but with a disturbing victorious calm. She ordered a chai latte, her hand steady. It was as if I was looking at a complete stranger. "He was never going to be happy with just you," she said, her tone icy. "He needs a woman who matches his vision, not just a wife. He loves me." Then came the final brutal twist of the knife. "And I'm pregnant too." Her words were a hostile act of war. The betrayal was so complete it felt like a physical blow, leaving me breathless. I got up and walked out, my own coffee untouched. The life I had treasured was gone, destroyed by the two people I trusted most in the world. I hired Boston's most feared divorce lawyer that very afternoon. It was going to be a war. Julian's millions against my evidence. My parents called, pleading with me to reconcile, to consider the family's reputation. I stopped answering their calls. The divorce was a savage affair. His lawyers painted me as vindictive and unstable. My attorney laid out the offshore wire transfers, the secret LLCs, and the hidden real estate deeds. It was a vicious battle of finance and betrayal, waged in sterile conference rooms. The months crept by. As my body grew with my child, so did my determination. Julian and Sophie became fixtures in the society columns. I ignored it all, concentrating on my health and the new life I would soon be raising by myself. My son Leo was born on a beautiful October morning. As I held him, the chaos of the past year seemed to fade away. The divorce was settled a week later. I got the house, sole custody, and a settlement that guaranteed my son's future. The judgment was a disaster for Julian. His reputation in the venture capital world was ruined by the scandal of him diverting company funds for my sister. He was now financially tied to two families and the mess he had created. The last time I saw him was across a massive mahogany table in my lawyer's office. He seemed diminished, the ambition in his eyes replaced by profound weariness. He had Sophie, but he had lost his entire professional kingdom. Sophie sent one final hateful text. "You lost him." I deleted it immediately. I hadn't lost a thing. I had been set free. That part of my life was completely finished. A year later, the brownstone was full of joy. We were celebrating Leo's first birthday. My true family, the friends who stood by me, filled the rooms. The house was no longer a symbol of Julian's wealth, but a real home filled with warmth. My friend Isabella wrapped an arm around my shoulders. "You're a different person, Clara. You walked through fire." I smiled because she was right. The flames had burned away my old life, leaving something stronger in its place. I had opened my own art investment firm advising private collectors. It was already thriving. I was no longer Julian Thorne's wife. I was Clara Thorne, a mother, a business owner, and the architect of my own life. I heard the stories, of course. Julian and Sophie had a daughter. They were living in a new house he built outside the city. But their life together was built on a foundation of lies, and that kind of structure is never stable. I looked at Leo, who was giggling and smearing cake on his face, and felt an overwhelming sense of peace. My son would grow up understanding what loyalty and honesty were. My victory wasn't revenge, it was this quiet, joyful life. The judge fixed her gaze on Julian. Mr. Vance, please rise. He stood, his bespoke suit suddenly seeming ill fitting. Her voice cut through the silence. After reviewing the facts, this was not infidelity, it was deliberate, systemic fraud. You secretly funneled assets to your wife's sister, she said, her voice stern. All while your own wife, pregnant with your child, believed you were building a life together. The room was silent. Your only regret seems to be that you were caught. Due to the extreme nature of this betrayal, the court awards punitive damages. For the gross violation of marital trust, 70% of your shares in the venture fund are forfeit. Your entire personal investment portfolio will be transferred to your wife. A collective intake of breath filled the courtroom. Julian swayed, looking pale. The gavel struck with finality. This judgment is absolute. His financial empire was gone in a flash. For me, a quiet wave of peace washed over everything. It was over. I now look out over the city from my own office, founder and CEO, with an income well over $500,000. Last year's success allowed me to fund a $50,000 grant for women in tech. Their fresh start, my clean slate. The venture fund's partners bought out Julian's remaining shares for millions, a quiet condemnation of his actions. My sister Sarah sent a single text. I destroyed everything for both of us. Forgive me. I erased it. The ultrasound picture remains on my desk. My CTO, a woman named Kira, works in the next office. The divorce was granted the week Sarah fled San Francisco. She took a check for $10,000 and moved back to Arizona, cut off by our ashamed parents. I heard she's a receptionist now. Her grand ambitions vanished. I never knew she had that envy in her. My mom cried. She chose her own consequences, I told her. My daughter Lily and I were finally safe. I had my own company, and Lily was thriving. The nightmares were finally gone. She has my analytical mind, but her smile is entirely her own. Julian Vance called once, months ago. You knew all along, he whispered. I'm just glad my daughter is provided for. She's secure because of what I built. Julian and my father had a bitter confrontation. My uncle repaid the $80,000 Julian had invested for him. The Pacific Heights home sold for $15 million. I received the majority, plus another $1 million from the court. He now lives in a soulless apartment complex out by the freeway. I see him once a month. Handing Lily over is always tense, quick, and silent. We never speak Sarah's name. Sarah is a ghost in Arizona. 1,000 miles away. She sent one email last week with a single word, sorry. I never answered. The rage has dissolved into a cold resolve, which feels like armor. This afternoon, I met Maria on a sunny patio. The November air was cool. Her startup was just featured in a tech journal. You built this, I reminded her. She put her hand on mine. Thank you for believing in me. We have to lift each other up, I said, raising my glass. Her phone buzzed. An investor was on the line. You need to get that, I told her. I'll cover the check. She waved goodbye. Same time next week? Absolutely. I watched the people pass by. Last winter, I found my husband's secret. My own sister was trying to sabotage my life, but she underestimated me. I'm Claire Vance. As a CEO, I built companies from scratch. My marriage was the one thing I had to demolish. My phone buzzed with a new photo of Lily from her daycare. I managed a small smile, left some cash, and walked out into the world, complete, free from a treacherous husband and a sister consumed by jealousy. For the first time, I felt truly safe. If this resonates with you, please listen to the warnings. I ignored 3 critical warning signs. the second phone hidden in his luggage, the unexplained weekend trips he claimed were for work, their hushed conversations after I'd gone to bed. My instincts were screaming. Some truths are hidden in plain sight. Leaving Julian was the right call. I only wish I'd trusted myself sooner. Her constant digs about my work, the veiled insults, her dismissal of my success, that kind of envy is a poison. It festers until you find the secret flight confirmations that destroy your world, all because your own sibling coveted your life. Be careful who you trust. Don't wait until you find the secret phone bill to learn that betrayal often comes from inside your own family. It's a harsh lesson. My advice is this: trust your gut. If a family member makes you feel small or on edge, create distance. That toxicity will ruin everything. They know your insecurities, your private worries about motherhood, and all of your weak points. They will turn it all into ammunition. I was fortunate to get away. It taught me that blood means nothing without loyalty. If any of this sounds familiar, I'd like to hear your story. Has someone you trusted as family ever betrayed you? Please share this with anyone who needs a reminder. Join me next time when I discuss a partner who tried to ruin his wife's company. Thank you for your time. I know this topic can be difficult. I hope you find content that brings you comfort. Be well.